Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Davis. I'm an artist and strategic advisor at ArtBlocks. And the title of my presentation today is called Generative Art on the Blockchain, How Ethereum Transformed My Artistic Practice. So I'm going to start with a little background about my career as an artist, but then I'm going to focus in on the last 5 years of my career and speak about how NFTs, specifically NFTs on Ethereum, changed the way I work as an artist. So I've been an artist for 30 years. My background is in traditional media, painting and printmaking, traditional printmaking. I also have a background in mathematics. I studied math as an undergraduate, which has obviously influenced the way my art looks. So in my early career, I pursued painting and printmaking to pursue geometric abstraction. I used architecture to explore form and color. But over time, my work became increasingly more digital. I started using Photoshop and Illustrator to create digital prints. This is an exhibition I had in Phoenix, where I'm from, called Location Series. And then in 2009, I had developed sort of this visual framework that I'd been working with for about 10 years. And I decided I wanted to introduce randomness or chance into my work. So I started exploring generative techniques. I taught myself the processing coding language, which is basically JavaScript for artists, is the best way to put it. And I started working in larger, more iterative series. So my process was to write algorithms that would create works of art and then create prints of those works. And so this is a project called Facades, again from an exhibition I had in Phoenix. So I basically thought of myself as a generative printmaker at this point in my career, probably this till about 2019. And that's when I first discovered NFTs. And so that leads me to the first artistic transformation I'd like to speak about, which is digital ownership. So I mentioned I'd been using digital tools since the 1990s for my work, but there was always a physical manifestation. So in what you were seeing in the previous slides, prints of my work. But in 2019, I discovered NFTs through platforms like Super Rare and Known Origin, both Ethereum NFT platforms. At the time, I sort of knew what Bitcoin was from the news, but I really was unfamiliar with blockchain technology in general, or Ethereum. I had no idea what Ethereum was. But I was really intrigued by this idea of art remaining in a purely digital form on these platforms, and that there was this online marketplace surrounding these digital assets. So I bought a small amount of ETH. I think I bought like $40 worth of ETH, and I used it to mint my first NFTs in 2019. And so this was kind of an experimental period for me. I was taking algorithms that I'd written for past exhibitions that I was creating prints out of, and I ran extensions of them to create new artworks, and then I minted them. I had a few initial sales, mostly to other artists working on the platform at the time, and I just reinvested that back into minting new projects. My kind of curiosity grew about this new kind of landscape for my work, and so in 2020, early 2020, I created my first fully dedicated NFT project, a brand new algorithm specifically for an NFT release. It's called Abstract Tokens. It was a series of 60 artworks from a single algorithm. And the way the platforms at the time worked, I minted them essentially one at a time individually. It took me about 6 weeks to release this project because Super Rare in particular had sort of limits on how much you could publish as an artist. So to keep people from spamming it. I became really active on Twitter. I really wasn't using that as social media at the time. Kind of connected with the crypto community there. And eventually sold out this project. And so this initial success really confirmed that this was a really interesting sort of frontier and territory that I wanted to explore. So I followed that up with another project called Jazz Tokens on Super Rare. And what I was finding as I was kind of working in this new way is that NFTs were reducing a lot of constraints around my work. There weren't any physical limitations in terms of material needs, and no space limitations. So generally before, I would create as many artworks as I could afford to print and frame, and also in terms of how many could fit into a gallery space. So series were, 8 to 10 to 12 generally. But working digitally, it kind of removed all of those barriers. So instead of that, why not 20 or 40 or 60 artworks? I could think bigger about my projects. Plus, there was just this really great online community of people that appreciated both the fact that they were being released as digital assets, but also in terms of the genre and the way that I worked as a code-based artist, as a generative artist. And so that was a reception I didn't actually have in my career prior to discovering NFTs in the crypto community. People generally didn't understand what I was doing as an artist, and you see their faces kind of gloss over when I talk about writing algorithms and how I approach my art. But this was, as I mentioned, so I was exploring all of this through what are called one-of-one platforms. So platforms made for singular works of art, but that's not how I work as an artist. I'm a systems-based artist, and I create systems to create larger amounts of outputs. And so that leads me to the next artistic transformation called on-demand generation. So my process to this point in NFTs was to write an algorithm, run outputs, select what I thought were the best ones, and then mint them individually, one at a time on the platform. But it seemed to me there would be a better way to handle NFTs for a generative artist. It's code-based work, so it seemed to me that there would be a way to host your work online and have people come to the algorithm and create their own outputs. And then Artblocks arrives on the scene. So in late 2020, September, Eric Calderon, Snowfro, who's the founder of Artblocks, reached out to me. He had discovered the NFT work I'd been showing previously, and realized I was working as a generative artist, and kind of explained to me this new platform that he was working on called Artblocks. And I was really intrigued at the time by his description of the platform. It kind of sounded like a vending machine for generative art. Was the best way I could kind of conceptualize it. And I was also just kind of in a mode where I was clearly being very exploratory about my art and trying new things. And so I was like, yeah, let's give this a shot. So I started working on a project, this one, Construction Token. And then in November of 2020, Artblocks launched officially with a project from Eric, Chromie Squiggle, a project from his brother Danny called Genesis, and my project, Construction Token. And this was a project that produced 500 outputs, so a much larger scale and volume than what I was doing previously. It sold out on the first day, which was really kind of crazy. We're sort of blown away by the response of it. And so pretty quickly after the kind of launch of Artblocks, I just went to Eric and said, if you are going to form a company around Artblocks, I want to help you. I want to be part of it. I want to help you grow the platform. So I joined Artblocks pretty much right after we launched the platform. And I continued to work on Artblocks as an artist, kind of simultaneously. So this is another project from 2021 called Color Study. And so this idea of on-demand generation for my artwork started forcing new ways of thinking for myself as an artist. So before I mentioned, I would kind of curate the best outputs and then mint those individually. Here, you're putting the entire algorithm, you were actually writing it to the Ethereum blockchain. And so this allows for even larger series of work. This project was 2,000 outputs. And so that's not something I mentioned, kind of lifting the constraints of physical space and physical materials, moving from printmaking to NFTs, moving from one-of-one NFTs to generatively created NFTs created an even higher level of scope. This is not something I could have done by hand, creating 2,000 outputs and putting them individually on the blockchain. And at the same time, it causes you as a generative artist to be more precise with your algorithm development. Up to this point in my career, even when I was working generatively, I would be hand selecting the outputs, and so throwing away the bad ones that I didn't think worked. And that was fine, that was kind of part of the process. But here, everything that comes out counts, everything gets minted. And so you have to really narrow your algorithm and really focus your algorithm so that everything that comes out is acceptable to you as an artist. And then this is another Artblocks project from 2021 called Rhythm. It's 333 outputs. And I just want to touch on one other sort of aspect of on-demand generation that's kind of came up that was very interesting. And it's a concept of shared creation. So at least the way Artblocks works, none of this work exists until it's purchased and minted at the time of mint. And so the outputs themselves are a surprise to both the artist and the collector. You don't know what you're going to get until it comes out. And so both the artist and the collector are experiencing the creation of the work at the same time. And so this is, it's kind of a side product or side effect of like working with Artblocks, but it's a pretty powerful experience that it adds this sense of discovery to a work that you don't have in other contexts. You go and you see the artwork and it's there, and here you're sort of generating the work on the fly. But this kind of phase of my career, 2020, late 2020, 2021, this was all happening during the global pandemic. So all of this is occurring online. My art is being issued, essentially put out via the web and that sort of thing. So that leads me to the next artistic transformation I'd like to speak about, which is digital exhibition. So I've been doing my art releases online via Artblocks and Ethereum blockchain. My engagement with other artists and collectors was all happening on social media because we're all stuck at home at this time. And along comes a new gallery called Bright Moments. So in April of 2021, Seth Goldstein, who's the founder of Bright Moments Gallery, DM'd me on Twitter, where I had become active. And he told me that he was opening an NFT gallery in Venice Beach, California, called Bright Moments. And the timing for me was perfect. So as I mentioned, this has all been happening sort of online, but I had been craving sort of that in-person experience that I had been having with my artwork, kind of from the earlier slides. You put art on the walls, you have an opening, you interact with people in face-to-face around the art. And so they were basically pitching that concept, but for NFTs. So I was excited. So vaccinations were starting to make this possible again. And so I helped them launch the gallery with a project called Portal. And we didn't know it at the time, but it was the beginning of a real special relationship that I had with the Bright Moments Gallery. It kicked off Bright Moments exhibitions in 8 other international cities. As an artist, I had the privilege to participate in all 8 of their cities that they went to. So this is a project called Reflection from their second city. They moved from Venice Beach, California to New York City. And then they followed that up with an exhibition in Berlin. This is my project from there called Inflection. And then they went on to London, Mexico City, Tokyo, Buenos Aires, Paris, and Venice, Italy, concluded last year. It was a 3-year journey of digital exhibitions around the world. And really their special sauce was combining this concept of on-demand generation that I was speaking about kind of in the last segment, but combining it with live events. So they were using Artblocks technology sort of under the hood for minting these projects. But doing it in real life, kind of in real time with people. And so this concept of shared creation that was happening online was now happening in an in-person setting. And so you were literally artist and collector standing side by side, watching one of these artworks come to life at the same time and seeing it together for the first time. And so, yeah, that's also pretty powerful stuff as well. And so also as an artist, it forced me to sort of consider the live experience, about minting these, and also as I mentioned, it was over multiple cities in different countries. And so how do I connect my artwork to these different venues and these different locations? And so because of the digital exhibition aspect of my work, my practice changed again. I started pursuing animated and time-based work. And so everything prior to this point had been static, and you can't tell from these photos because they're not videos, but these works are animated, so these colors change over time. They kind of evolve on the color wheel. This is from my project called Culmination, and this was from their Paris exhibition. And so what you're seeing in this context is essentially live code running in a browser, all packaged in an NFT. And so it's really, for a code-based artist like myself, it's a really native way to kind of package your artwork together into a single unit. And over this time, obviously I'd been traveling a lot across all these cities, making new relationships with other artists and other people in the space. And that leads me to the last transformation I'd like to speak about, which is collaboration. And so this isn't a direct result of NFT technology or Ethereum. It's just part of my NFT journey. Basically, NFTs unlocked a lot of things for me, and so this is sort of an extension of sort of a lot of the things that NFTs unlocked for me. I was just presented with a lot of new opportunities for collaboration. Late 2023, I worked on 2 different collaborations as an artist. The first was with a Dutch art studio called Drift. They're known for their large scale Kinetic sculptures and drone performances. And so we did a project called Schema, which is based on one of their projects called Meadow, which is a bunch of large upside-down mechanical flowers that open and closed. And so we developed a generative project to create generative schematics or blueprints of what those installations could be. And it was a fun way to work. We basically took the code base for our project and passed it back and forth between our studios, and I worked on the color and composition, some of the things that I'm more interested in as an artist, and they worked more on the animation and movement and some of the flower geometry and those sorts of things. Shortly after that, I did another collaboration with Trem Paris. Trem is a new studio based in Paris that what they do is they combine generative art with traditional craftsmanship. Ismail Tazi, who's the founder, it's a good friend now, we spent a lot of time together thinking about, like, what should I work on, in terms of a medium for a project with them. And we settled in on stained glass because of my interest in light and color in my work. And so we partnered with Atelier Loire, a stained glass studio based in Chartres, France. They're actually pretty well known for their renovations of historic cathedrals. They did the cathedral in Chartres, and I think they worked on the one, I think they actually did some work on Notre Dame as well. So I visited their studio to learn more about the process. And it really informed like how I approach the algorithm development in terms of how to keep the glass structural and not break and not have the panels be wobbly. And so the end result was Optimism. It's a combination of algorithmic art, NFTs, and stained glass. And in this setting, the NFTs served as essentially digital specifications for the fabrication of these panels. And then this is a collaboration in process. I'm working with a friend and fellow generative artist, Martin Grasser. It's called In Conversation, and it's a generative book. So what we're doing is we're each writing algorithms that explore different principles of design and principles of color, and then putting those images next to each other on the page so that they sort of talk to each other visually. And so the idea here is to sort of unpack the basics of design and color in what feels like a textbook, but in a generative fashion. So that brings me to the end of my talk. Thank you all for coming out. I hope that something here resonated with you about my practice. And really what I'm trying to show is that Ethereum has become this sort of new way of for me working creatively, and so hopefully there's some inspiration there about how it might be able to unlock creative practices for you as well. QR code, that goes to my website if you're interested in connecting or learning more. On the About page, you'll find all my socials and how to connect with me. And I'll just say, because it's the homepage right now, I just finished last month a 30-year retrospective of my work in Paris. It just closed, but we produced a catalog for it, and so that's what you'll see when you when you hit the homepage. And so those are available too if that's of interest. So that's it. Thank you very much.